Yo, what is going on YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic today. Today we've got 10.3 update notes, a big change to healers, a big change to anti-heal. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Okay, so this is something we'll have to see, but basically the UI got a complete rework. Everything with the UI has changed, literally everything. But this is the new UI. It's all a lot more editable. You can move your abilities, you can move everything literally on the entire thing, except this top part, I think, and then the Anubis picture. Those are the only two things you cannot move. All game modes. Player kill XP changes. Decrease the amount of XP for killing lower level players. So if you're ahead and you're snowballing, killing that person instead of farming is now worth less. Basically, if you have a lead, if you're snowballing, if you're 13-0, your death is now more easy for the enemy to punish. They get more from punishing you, I guess is the better way to say it. So if you die while you are 14-0, and the enemy shuts you down and you're 4 levels up, they're going to be getting more than they got before, which was about 1.5 levels if it was that big. It'll probably be about 2 levels now. It goes up about twice as much, and then it decreased by half if you're ahead and you're killing somebody behind you. You now get shutdown bonuses. The same as you get a first blood. If you kill somebody who's on a kill streak, you get 200 XP and 50 gold. And then all 4 teammates receive assist rewards even if they are out of range or dead. The conquest map is beginning to regrow and reflourish. So the art direction is now a variety of glowing pants, pools of water, and an entirely new skybox. Include the spectator view alternate art set for this map that adjusts and lowers various environment pieces that can block the spectator camera view. Multiple adjustments have been made to the jungle pathing. So the actual jungle rocks have been moved around slightly. This season's new mechanic is the Cyclops Thieves. They're a larger version of the Cyclops Rogues from Season 1. They now have their own dedicated camp. This camp is a new type of dynamic gold reward that scales depending on how far ahead or behind you are. So that is now 2 things. HiRez is in a spot now where they think Snowball is too harsh. 3 ways that they've been trying to slow down Snowball. 1, you now get more XP and gold for killing somebody who's ahead of you in levels. 2, if you shut down somebody on a kill streak, you're going to be getting XP and gold, and it's going to be going to your teams also. No matter the range, they will get an assist. And then 3, these Cyclops Thieves camps will now be giving you chests on the duo side back camps every 2 minutes. And if you're behind, they'll be giving you more gold. If you are ahead, you'll not be getting any extra gold. So this is a way for a team who's getting snowballed on to get even more gold. Honestly, this is one of my least favorite changes. All this stop the snowballing stuff that's going on. Because from my opinion, it does not feel like a weakness of Smite right now is players that get ahead are very hard to deal with, or there's no way to combat that. If you're on a kill streak, you're going to want to protect your life even more than you did before. This is the actual math if you want to calculate it out. This is really big for supports. If you're behind as support on that team, you'll be getting a lot of gold. There's times that I was getting like 200 gold, 250 gold. And these respawn every 2 minutes. Back harpies now respawn every 2 minutes instead of every 4 minutes. But the XP and the gold from these harpies is now decreased by half. So they're up twice as much and they're worth half as much. So it's basically the exact same thing. It's just more things for the junglers to actually be doing on the map. Fire Giant adjusted the ring of fire radius to more closely match the Fire Giant's actual leash radius. Good. It's hard to tell sometimes what the edge of the Fire Giant pit is, because you can actually auto inside of it. Fire Giant buff. Decrease to healing. The health per second is from 0.8 to 0.6. You're getting slightly more extra physical and magical power. Same thing with EFG. You're getting slightly less health per second, but you're getting 10 more and 5 more power, magical and physical. Gold Fury. So now you know that exploit where you can walk a Gold Fury around the pit and you would take no damage. It was considered an exploit, but it was something where it was kind of allowed in games, but it's something that they didn't want. So now that is going to be patched, you will no longer be able to walk them around. Pyro, same thing. Bastions are now worth 1,500 health instead of 1,200. Still the same amount of gold. Slightly weird change, in my opinion. I thought 1,200 was a pretty nice spot where if you pick to kind of kill those early, you would be allowed to, but 1,500, it's only 300 extra. Slightly more annoying, but Tier 1 Tower is now going to be doing more damage, and it's going to be doing less damage to minions based from that power. So it'll be just doing more damage to enemy gods, the same amount of damage to enemy minions. Tier 2 is the same thing, less damage to enemy minions. Roaming back harpies, they no longer get knocked back. So if you're autoing them and you're trying to like walk to your lane as you're autoing them, they'll continue just walking through your autos, pretend like you're Sylvanas hitting it, doesn't knock back anymore. It'll just continue walking at you. Now 2 roaming harpies spawn halfway through the respawn timer of back harpies, so 60 seconds after the spawn is cleared. And the new roaming mid harpies, they spawn halfway through the respawn of mid harpies. They split off towards Chaos side and one towards the Order side, and they path around the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant pit, around the entire pit, so around the walls, not just on the inside. It walks around literally the entire area, so it'll actually wrap through the shield camp. Mid harpies actually had 1 mid harpy from each camp removed, so now it's only 2. The purple buff camp now decreased magical basic attack damage from 15 to 10. Magical ADCs, I think, were actually in a pretty balanced spot last patch, and now another nerf to them is not going to be feeling too good. Their early game is now going to be even weaker. Their late game was already not that strong, so mage ADCs might need a little bit of love after all this is done. Silver buff Scorpion. So this we'll talk about together. Solo lane is just getting more XP and gold on their side of the map. Their blue buff is going to be worth more. The silver buff Scorpion is going to be worth more, and the minis on the buff camp are going to be worth more. So solo side is just going to have more XP and gold on that side of the map. Totem again. Capturing the totem once again grants reward to all gods on the team instead of having to go pick it up under tower. But if you want to refresh it, you obviously have to go under tower. And now the damage output buff is 15% instead of 10, and the damage is also increased by 5 units. And now the biggest change in the entire patch, the healing update. So healing abilities will no longer have power scaling on any gods. Aphrodite and Hell receive level-based scaling on their healing, and other gods will have no scaling. Only ranking up an ability or buying healing increasing items will increase their healing. Gods and items across the game will receive nerfs to their healing abilities, lifesteal stats, and similar effects by roughly 30%. The scaling changes are included in this calculation. Most gods and items will receive buffs to their non-healing abilities and stats in order to compensate for these nerfs. The brawling system has been removed from the game. Players will no longer have 40% decreased healing when they haven't recently engaged in God versus God combat. Thank you, HiRez. Healing reduction will now be capped at 80% reduction on the afflicted target. No longer is there with a 100% cap. Also an incredible change. Part of the reason that healers felt really bad was both of these. Serket, Odin, and Osiris will be the only exception and have unique text to describe that their abilities prevent healing entirely. Physical lifesteal is now capped at 50%, and magical lifesteal is now capped at 40%. Shield reduction items will be introduced in this update and will apply debuffs to enemies that reduce the amount of shield HP of any shields applied to them while the debuff is active. And shield reduction has a cap of 80%. Healing items. So this is just the magical healing tree. Restoring wand, 650 gold, 15 power, 50 health, 50 mana. Tier 2 rod of healing, 1350 gold, 55 power, 75 health, 75 mana. And new rod of Asclepius, 2600 gold, 90 magical power, 250 health, 250 mana. Healing is increased by 30%. And allied gods within 30 units have 20% cooldown reduction. Next up, Rejuvenating Heart, 2450 and 70 magical power with 300 mana and 300 health. Successfully hitting enemy gods with basic attacks and abilities provides a stack of 6% healing dealt that is consumed by the next ability. The next ability healing used, max 8 stacks. You may only gain 1 stack per god hit per ability. I think this one's a little bit on the weekend. Lowish power, mediocre stats, kind of expensive, and then the passive is just something you have to stack up, and then the positive you get from it is still barely over this, and then you have to stack it up. Collapse, I think, is in a very, very strong state, giving 10% to allies of cooldown, and Rejuvenating Heart, I think, is a little weak. It could use a little bit of love. Last Gasp, 2400 gold, 100 power, 200 health, 200 mana, 15 magical pen. After healing an ally with an ability, you gain 10 magical power per 10% of their missing health for 6 seconds. This effect can only occur once every 10 seconds. This one, I'm interested to see how it will feel in mid. It's not an item you can actually rush. It can be that item that can kind of pair against like a Doom Orb or Warlocks or a Book of Thoth, because there's just a ton of power you can get from this item if you're actually using your healing. It's also got Flat Pen. It's also got a lot of power, and it's somewhat cheap. So I'm interested to see how this one will feel, but I'm not too sure. Next up is the physical healing tree. Blessed Scepter, 10 power, 50 health, 5 MP5 for 700 gold. Splendid Scepters, 1300 gold, 20 power, 100 health, 10 MP5. Caduceus Club, 2400 gold, 30 power, 250 health, 20 MP5, 10% cooldown. Healing dealt is increased by 30%, and allied gods within 70 units have 10% crowd control reduction and 4% movement speed. CAD is a little statted, a little overstated, I think. Cooldown, CCR to allies, movement speed to allies, increased healing, a good amount of power, survivability in the health, and then MP5. 2400 gold maybe makes it so it doesn't feel great to build into, but I'm interested to see how this item is going to feel. Vital Amplifier, 2450 gold, 40 power, 200 health, 15 MP5, 20% attack speed. After healing yourself or an allied god with an ability, you gain 10% attack speed and 5% basic attack damage for 6 seconds, stacking 3 times. I don't know what god you're really going to ever be building this on. If you're healing yourself and you're playing something like that, like Kama, do you make great use out of the attack speed, basic attack damage, something like that? Osiris doesn't have a heal to make use of it. Bellona doesn't have a heal to make use of it, other than the 3rd auto on our Scourge. So I don't know what the entire class that you want building this item is. Interested to see who's going to be building it. Sekhmet's Scepter, 2500 gold, 45 physical power, 200 health, 15 MP5, 10% cooldown, and after healing yourself or an allied god with an ability for the next 6 seconds each time you damage an enemy god, your non-ultimate ability cooldowns are reduced by 0.5 seconds. And this reduction can only occur once per second, and the effect may only occur once every 12 seconds. So, going from an item I don't know who's going to be building it to an item that I think nearly every single healer will make great use out of this item. Yeah, Sekhmet Scepter may be a very strong item on the likes of Guan, Camazotz, Tyr, any god that has a heal and his ability base, which is a good chunk of them. And it's healing yourself or an allied god, so it's not like self-healers aren't going to be making great use out of it. So this one I think is going to be pretty strong. With all the healing changes, shields stand to gain a lot of power. We did not nerf shields game-wide in a way we nerfed healing, but we're introducing new counter items that will decrease shields as they are applied. So basically just, they're nerfing healing. Shielding is going to be seen as more valuable because healing is worse, so they're adding in items that reduce healing. First up, erosion. This is building from into the binding tree, the stone of binding tree. 2350 gold, 30 protections of each, 350 health, and every time an enemy within 30 units gains a shield, you gain 15% movement speed for 4 seconds. This effect can only occur once every 10 seconds. And any shield applied on an enemy god within 30 units will be reduced by 30%. I like this. This is clean. Feels good to build into. It feels like you're actually getting good use out of it. I think the problem is healed reducing items will make gods like Odin and Nike feel a little bit worse, and I think they're going to need a little bit of love in the patch to make up for them. Gem of ISO. Enemies hit by your damaging abilities will move 30% slower and will have shields applied on them reduced by 50% for 2.5 seconds. This can occur once every 10 seconds. Envenomed Deathbringer. Critical hits on enemy gods afflicts them with poison for 3 seconds. This poison slows them by 10%, reduces their healing by 35%, and shields applied on them are reduced by 50%. Envenomed Deathbringer now feels even better. ADCs have an auto attack, a healing reduction item, and it's not something that they have to actually build into. It's on an item that they build a lot anyway. So you're going to be seeing a lot of Envenomed Deathbringer because 35% healing reduction on top of 50% shield reduction. They're going to get envenomed. Claw Shard is getting a slight nerf because they're nerfing nearly all lifesteal. So the lifesteal from 20 to 15 and physical lifesteal to 8. Cloak of Meditation, 10 base plus 3% of missing health to 8 base to 2% of your missing health. This feels not good. This change is probably one of the sneakier changes in the patch for nearly every god. Cloak of Meditation had a niche early game as an item that gave you enough health and enough mana to make it so you were basically fighting 1.5 versions of the enemy team. Now this is going to be something where it is going to be even worse than before, where it's going to be, instead of 1.5, you're going to be fighting like 1.25. This nerf is a lot harder than you think it would be. Med feels not very good. Same to the Greater Cloak. It's the exact same change. Med's Cloak of Ascetic, which is a cooldown one, 30 plus 4% to 20 plus 30%. Another pretty big change. Another med nerf. And then Cloak of the Avatar, 30 plus 4% to 20 plus 3%. So yeah, overall, Med feels a little bit worse. Give it a try yourself. You're going to have to feel how it feels for you and in your games. But so far, I've felt like it's not felt good at all. Well, the base of it. I think the upgraded ones still have value because it's cooldown reducing and then a knockup. But it's still, the heal feels a lot worse. Sundering Siphon, probably one of the worst relics in the game, is getting a nerf. Yay. Death's Toll is getting a shift. You're getting more power, but you're getting less healing. 15 to 18, and then 2 plus 0.4% to 2 plus 0.2%. Death's Embrace shift. Hitting an enemy with a basic attack restores 1.4% of your health, 2% of your mana, and reduces your active non-ultimate cooldowns by 33 or 0.33 seconds. And basic attacks that deal an ability or an AoE restore less health, 75%. So pretty cool change to Death's Embrace. I'm interested to see who's going to be using this. Death's Temper increased the amount of stacks gained from Killer Assist from 5 to 10. This is the big one. Cowl buff. Probably the biggest change in the patch for ADCs. I think Cowl is going to be auto built for hunters. The cost is now 650, which is huge. 650 is huge for Cowl. It was the most expensive starter item for hunters, while Death's Toll was 650. So if you went Cowl, you're also giving up 50 gold. Power is going up 3. Lifesteal is going down 3%, and then you're gaining 3% attack speed. Cowl is now going to be giving you 18 power and 20% attack speed in the laning phase on top of 4% lifesteal. Hunter's Cowl is now going to be giving 70 power, 20% attack speed, and only 10% lifesteal. Leader's Cowl is now going to be giving 70 power, 10% lifesteal, and 20% attack speed. Gilded Arrow is getting 4 gold per passive stack instead of 3. Diamond Arrow buff, it is getting 50 health and 10% penetration. Ornate Arrow is now going to be giving you base physical crit strike chance that is actually relevant. 5% way too not relevant. 15% more relevant. and also 70 attack damage. Bluestone nerf. Instead of 48 damage, it's going to be doing 40. Keep in mind, it also is halved after every hit. So instead of 48-24, it's going to be 40-20. Bluestone Brooch nerf. The base cooldown is from 180 to 160, and the current health is down from 15 to 12%. Warrior's Axe. Decrease the health and mana restore from 30 plus 1.5 to 20 plus 0.1 or plus 1. Damage is kept the same. Sundering Axe. Increase damage from protection scaling from 1 to 1.5, and this item can no longer trigger its bonus damage off of other item damage. It will only trigger on ability damage. So like contagions, mystical mails, stuff like that. It will no longer proc it. Boomba's Dagger. 10 power, 10 physical power, 15 magical power, and 8% health restore instead of 10%. Boomba's Spear is now 8% instead of 10%. Boomba's Hammer is now 60 power, physical, 80 power magical, but the health restore is now 80 instead of 100. Mannequin Scepter is increasing the power scaling from 5 to 7% and decreasing the health restore from 3 to 2.5. Mannequin's Mace is now just decreasing the health restore from 3 to 2.5. Eye is now getting 15 power physical and 30 power magical. Seer of the Jungle is now getting 70 power physical and 100 power magical and 40 physical protections. Sentinel's Gift is now only giving you 12 health back after every minion assist. Sentinel's Boon is now only going to be 3% instead of 4%. Benevolence is now 0.6 instead of 0.75 per stack, or per 5. Protectors is now 12 instead of 15. War Flag is now 4 instead of 5. War Banner is now 1.2 or 1 instead of 1.25. Vampiric Shroud is getting a cost reduction from 700 to 650. The magical power is 30 to 35, 10 MP5, lifesteal reduced down to 4%, and the health restore is from 4 to 3. I'm going through these kind of quickly because there's a lot of them, and it's a lot of small changes. So if I just sat here talking about all of them, you guys would be here all day. Blood-Soaked Shroud Shift is now going to be 110 power, 350 health, 10% lifesteal, and 1.2% health restore per ability. Sacrificial Shroud is up to 125 power. You're going to be getting 50 protections, 10% lifesteal, and only 3% of your health is going to be used. Spiked Gauntlet is now going to be getting 7 power at level 1 and only 2% lifesteal. Cursed Gauntlet is going to be giving 25 power and 4% lifesteal. Dev's Glove is going to be giving 35 power before being finished. 0.2 pen per stack. 0.1% lifesteal per stack, and it's going to be 10% lifesteal when finishing the item and 5 pen when you finish it. Dev's Gloves evolved. You're going to be getting 5 power, 5 pen, and losing 10% lifesteal. Bloodforge is now going to be getting 10% attack speed, and it's going to be losing 5% lifesteal. Bound Gauntlet is getting 5 power and losing 4% lifesteal. Soul Leader is going to be getting 30 power instead of 25, decreased lifesteal down to 6%, and decrease the lifesteal from abilities from 5 to 2.5. And then you're going to be getting 20 power on Evolved. So Soul Leader will now be giving 50 power, 10% lifesteal, and 10% ability lifesteal. Aussie is going to be getting 5 power, losing 8% lifesteal, and losing 10% lifesteal on the passive. Telkines is going to be losing 4% lifesteal. Polly is going to be losing 4% lifesteal. Spear the Mags is going to be losing 4% lifesteal, but gaining 1.5% damage on the passive and also gaining 1 second. Tiny Trinket is losing 2% lifesteal, but gaining 5 power. Enchanted Trinket, which is tier 2 Pythags and Soul Gem, is going to be gaining 5 power and losing 4% lifesteal. Pythags is going to be gaining 10 power, but reducing the lifesteals from 12. Why this is worded so weird. Pythag's lifesteal is getting nerfed. I have to see what it looks like on the actual stats thing to see, but I think it's going to be 8 and 6% now or something like that. Soul Gem is getting a power or a cost increase, gaining 10 power, losing 4% lifesteal, losing the scaling from the item by 5%, and then the heal is also going to be decreased to 15 plus 5 per level. Honestly, this kills the item. Soul Gem is dead. Don't even consider it an item anymore. It is absolutely useless. Probably one of the worst items in the game now. Yeah. Soul Gem, dead. Talon Trinket is going to be gaining 5 power, losing 3% lifesteal. Bancross is going to be gaining 50 mana. The passive floor is going to be 40%, but the lifesteal is going to be only 20% instead of 35% at low health. The math in no world means this item is better. This item is dead. It lost power scaling on the damage too. It got extra cost, and then the power only went up 10. And what do you mean nobody buys Soul Gem? The Soul Gem is bought for the healing. 100%. It makes it so you don't need to buy a survivability item because this item is just a survivability item because of how much you are healing. You'd be healing like 400 health. You'll be healing about 115 now. So the healing is cut by probably at least 75%. Tyvan's Fang is now 2650 gold. You're going to be getting 85 power instead of 70. Magical Pen is going to be 20%. Lifesteal is decreased by 5%, and the lifesteal, or the healing from lifesteal is now decreased from 20 to 15%. So Typhon's Fang is now another 20% pen option. TP is now 220 seconds instead of 220. Greater TP, which is just the first upgraded form, is now 180 instead of 160. Frostbound is just getting a buff. 50 gold off of the cost. Going to be gaining 5 power. Runeforged Hammer is going to be just gaining 100 gold off of the item, so now it's going to be 2,400. And the passive effects cooldown is going to be 15 seconds instead of 20. Oni's is getting a small shift. It's going to be gaining 50 health, but losing 1% mitigation per sack, which is overall a nerf. Fail Not is going to be giving damage reduction to the target hit by the Fail Not passive. Trans is 100 gold cheaper. Demon Blade is gaining 5 power and 5% attack speed. Bladed Boomerang is losing 150 gold, so it is now 2350. Griffin Wings is now 55 power instead of 45. Going into supports, I think it's only a couple. Heroism is gaining gold per 5. And Spartan Flag is now gaining gold per 5. That's it. That's all the supports got. Mages. Divine Rune. The power scaling from it is now 10% instead of 20%. So the damage is actually cut in half on the scaling. Rod Tahuti is gaining 15 power. And the floor is gaining 10% also. So now it is 60% where you'll be doing extra damage instead of 50. A nice buff to Rod. I don't know if it puts it into a spot where it's actually going to be bought in a lot of games. But it is a nice buff to the item. Calamitous Rod, also Perfected Rod, getting the same buffs. Doom Orb buff. No longer gives mana. It gives 10% pen, and the movement speed is 6% instead of 4%. Big buff to Doom Orb. Cursed Orb is now getting 5% pen and no mana, which is just the tier 2 of Doom Orb. Spear of Death Zone now costs 2350 gold. Rod is def meta now. Yeah, and now you're seeing all these buffs also to these items. And you're like, well, maybe it isn't meta because mages are getting other items buffed. And I don't know if you can even fit in Rod in your builds. And now this is the exciting part where I think it said 80 gods are getting changed. 80 gods. Let's strap in. Starting with Aphrodite. Kiss now deals damage, and Aphrodite now shares 50% of her MP5 and 20% of her physical and magical protections with her soulmate, instead of sharing a portion of her mana regen. Huge for Aphro support. Lovebirds. Decreased healing per tick. No longer scales. Now it's just 9, scaling up to 21, and then 2 per level. And now this ability provides a flat 0.25 second ability cooldown reduction per tick to self and allies, including on this ability. Undying Love. Using this ability provides self and allies the jealousy effects for 5 seconds. And then using this ability now provides 5 seconds of the jealousy buff to Aphro and her soulmate, increasing their damage by 8, 11, 14, 17, and 20%. Hell. New Light Stance passive. Hell now applies 8% power reduction to enemies in the aura radius instead of giving increased healing to allies. This effect now scales up as she becomes attuned to the stance. Decay. So Hell's 1 now goes through walls. Restoration now heals at 55 up to 115 and then 5 per level. And it passes through and damages minions now. And it provides mana sustain to self and allies on successful hits. Inspire. Decrease the self heal. It's now going to be 45 to 105 plus 6.5 per level. And the ally tick is going to be 7 to 15 plus 1.1 per level. This also affects ally minions at 50% rate. And the ability now provides 20% attack speed to self and allies for the duration. And Stand Switch is now a 1 second cooldown instead of 2 seconds. Both Hell and Aphro feel like they're kind of getting pushed into like a more utility role. So instead of being like mid lane damage dealers / healers, they're now mid lane utility enchanters or support enchanters, which after the video I put out yesterday, it's kind of cool that HiRez is now giving us an option for enchanting supports because Aphro and Hell now fit that to a T, and they're less frustrating in the way that they do it, which is now based off of their utility instead of just their healing. Those are the 2 biggest changes. Yamoja. Mending Waters, decrease the heal. It's now going to be 20 to 100. The shield is now going to be 30, scaling up to 150. And the damage is going to be 15 at every level. Sylvanas. The Wisp healing is now going to be 10 up to 26 every second for 5 seconds. Minions are healed and damaged for 25% of the amount. And this ability does not proc seed pods on hitting minions. Chang'e. Moonflower Dance. Decrease the heal. Now going to be 40, scaling up to 200, and removed the healing reduction debuff on this ability. Chang'e now has a new debuff applied from damaging abilities, where Chang'e deals 5% increased damage to the enemies, stacking up to 3 times, and the debuff lasts 4 seconds. Raw. Solar Blessing. Decrease the heal per tick to 12 to 60. Increase the protections from 10 to 26. Increase the power from 10 to 26. Magical power buff is 15 to 35. Decrease the cooldown from 18 to 16, and the mana is now 50 to 90. Searing Pain also now scales to only 110%, but now Searing Pain is now going to have a 5% of the target's max HP is going to be dealt as true damage. Guan Yu. Decrease the healing from 50 to 150 to now 30 to 110. And this ability now applies the 1 second flat CDR effect on allied gods healed. Taolu Salt now stacks up to 4 times instead of 3. Would this work on himself with Guan one? I don't know. I don't think so. Because it says on allied gods healed, and it usually says on self and allied gods, so I don't know. Terra, Monolith. Decrease the heal is now going to be 2 scaling up to 10, but the ability now provides protections while inside the area. On top of this, you're usually building Lotus Crown also, so this ability is going to be giving about 50 protections to allies. Earthen Fury no longer has heal over time, and the heal is also, instead of 100 scaling up to 300, is now 70 scaling up to 210. Allies now get 10% mitigation instead of 5%. One of the craziest changes in the patch. Resolute. Horus gains protections per stack from now 1.5 to 2.5, and decrease the healing per stack from 2 plus 0.75 per level to 1 plus 0.6 per level. Protector Surge now has a 10-second cooldown, and the heal is now decreased to 40 to 160, and the mana is only 45. Olarun. Consecration, which is his 3, only heals him without any scaling now. So instead of 10 up to 30 with 5% scaling, it's just 10 up to 30.
Cupid.
Share the Love. Decreased heal per heart from 40 to 140 plus scaling to 25 to 125 with no scaling. Cupid now gains a passive stack whenever he or an ally picks up a heart from this ability, and decrease the cooldown from 14 to 13 seconds. Baron Samdi. Consign Spirits. Decrease the flat heal from 40 to 140 plus 10% magical power to 30 plus 130, or 30 up to 130, and the decreased missing health heal from 7.5 to 5. This ability now applies slow immunity for the buff duration instead of just a cleanse. Eset. Dispel Magic. Her 3 is now a 14-second cooldown instead of 16 seconds. Circle of Protections is now 30% mitigation instead of 20% or 25%. And the decreased healing is 75 up to 215 instead of 90 to 190 plus 25% magical power. Ardio. Energy Surge. Decrease the heal from 60 to 140 to now 40 to 100. Entangling Vines is now going to be 5 to 15%. Instead of 5 to 15, it's going to be 9 to 15%. Furious Roar. To increase the self buff from 10 to 30, it's now 15 to 35. Life Tap, which is our 3 in Druid form, is now going to be 6 to 22 healing. The dash is now going to be 30% slow instead of 20 scaling up to 30. And then Shapeshift, her alt is going to be 1, 1.5, all the way up to 3 instead of 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. Cthulhu, increased attack speed slow from 10 to 30. It's now going to be 20 up to 30. The Mire is now going to be, base damage is now going to be 60 to 240 instead of 50 to 230. Transfuse, which is his heal in the alt form. Decrease the self damage of this ability from 6 to 4% of your max health, and decrease the ally healing from 8 to 12% max health to 5 to 9% max health. Achilles, Gift of the Gods. Protection bonus is now going to be 1.5 to 2. It's going to be at 2 for physical power also. Radiant Glory, though, is going to be a nerf on the heal. It's going to be, instead of 20 to 32 plus scaling, it's going to be 15 to 27. Amus and Cobb is going to be getting HP per level from 77 to 82, and the basic attack power per level from 2.2 to 2.5. Hive is no longer going to heal. AMC now just gains HP 5 while in the Hive area, so it's just not anti-healable. So this is just a straight up buff, because this is not something that you can anti-heal anymore, and there's hardly ever a time that you're getting up to 100 HP 5 for AMC. So this is just a straight up AMC buff. Opwash. Decrease maximum health restoration from 7 to 5%. Everybody picked up. An Undead Surge is now going to be a 12-second cooldown instead of 14 seconds. Amaterasu. The Benevolence movement speed aura from 5 to 21 is now going to be 9 to 21. And the decrease the heal per tick from 15 to 55 plus 5% of your physical power to 10 to 42. Anubis. Sorrow, which is his passive, now only heals 20% instead of 30% per stack. Flag of Locusts. Anubis can now move at 50% speed while using this ability. This ability now deals damage every 0.25 seconds instead of every 0.5 seconds. And decrease the damage from 35 up to 95 to 18 to 50. So Anubis just gets a pretty nice buff to his actual damage and to his safety on his 1, and then he just loses a little bit of lifesteal in return. Aokwang. His passive now only heals him 3% instead of 5%. Arachne. Arachne now gives anti-heal in her Venomous Bite. The healing is also 8 to 36 scaling. Cocoon now is 14 seconds instead of 15 seconds, and targets successfully stunned by Cocoon have their active ability cooldowns, the active cooldowns, increased by 2 seconds flat. So they're like this anti-CDR thing, and they are now adding it into an item on top of Abyssal Stone having anti-CDR too. Baba Yaga now heals 0.6% of her max health from her cabin is at a 0.8%, and her Baba's Brew is now a 10-second cooldown and only 60 mana. Bacchus, healing is getting slightly reduced from 0 to 70 with scaling is now going to be 0 up to 50, and Belch of the Gods is only going to be 40% healing reduction. Bacchusura, the debuff from Takedown, which is his jump, now deals 40% healing reduction. Eat Minion also has a decreased cooldown from 15 down to 8, and the healing is now 60 up to 280. Bastet, decrease the physical lifesteal, or decrease the lifesteal and ability lifesteal gain from 5 plus 0.5% per level to 4 plus 0.4% per level. Pounce now is 15 damage extra at every level. Bologna, base damage on her 1 and slow is now going to be 20 seconds at all ranks on Shield Bash, and Scourge healing is going to be 16 to 32. Camazotz, his passive is now going to be 1% of his max health instead of 2%, and the buff is going to be 3% instead of 6%. Screech is now going to be dealing 100 up to 280 plus 85% of your physical power, and the Echo Power is going to be giving you an extra 5 per level. The cooldown is also going down 1. Vampire Bat is going to be healing 20 to 100 healing, depending on the rank, and the buff you get per stack of Vampire Bats is going to be only 2% instead of 3%. It now provides an anti-heal effect. Devour, which is his 3, is now going to be healing him 10 up to 50 flat without physical power scaling, and it's going to be on a 15-second cooldown. Cerberus, increase the healing reduction from 30 to 40%, and increase the healing stolen from 50% to 80%. Paralyzing Spit is also going to stun scale up from 1.4 to 1.8, and the cooldown is going to be down from 14 to 13. Soul Expulsion is going to be healing you per minion 12 up to 40, and then per god is going to be 20 up to 100. CERN, lifesteal is going to be 4 to 10% instead of 5 to 15. Physical power is going to be 7% to 8% for summer heat. Autumn decay debuff duration now lasts 10 seconds. Winter chill now lasts 1.4 seconds, and the winter chill slow is now 9, scaling up to 15%. Chalk, decrease the healing on Rain Dance from 10 to 30 plus scaling every 0.5 to 8 to 28 every 0.5 with no scaling. Increase the attack speed reduction from 5 to 25 is now going to be 15 to 25. Storm Call is also going to do an extra 50 base damage at every rank. Chiron, decrease the healing per consumed stack from 30 plus 5 per god level over 5 seconds to 20 plus 3.5 per god per level. It's going to be giving you now 10 power instead of 5 for physicals and 15 instead of 10 for magicals. Masterful Shot is also down 1 second in cooldown.
Chronos,
Accelerate in the section heal 1, the section 1 heal zone is going to be 1% max health per second instead of 1.5. Kakolin, Barbed Spear is going to be only 40% healing reduction. Danzaburo, base damage is going to be 80 to 265, is now going to be 95 to 275. And Alluring Spirits is now going to be 20 up to 100 healing. And Tanuki Trickery is going to be 20% base movement speed in the field, and he's going to be getting 30 up to 40% leaf movement speed. So pretty big buff to his 3, pretty big buff to his 1, and a slight nerf on his 2. Erlang, Spot Weakness, decrease the lifesteal from 4 to 20% is now going to be 3 up to 15%, and the damage reduction per stack is going to be 5 up to 7% instead of 3 up to 7%. 9 Turns Blessing will now be healing you 100 up to 300 plus 12% of your maximum health, and the damage mitigation is going to be up to 25%, and the taunt duration is going to be 1.5 instead of 1.2. Fafnir, Endless Greed's passive is now going to be bonus protection capped at 35 instead of 25. Coerce is now going to be healing him for only 35 up to 95, but he's going to be giving 20 to 30% attack speed to Fafnir. Fenrir, his lifesteal scaling on his 2 is now going to be 20% instead of 35%. Freya's lifesteal on her passive is getting decreased to 7% plus 0.2%. Gilgamesh is going to be getting basic attack power. Hero's Advance is going to be having less lifesteal, and then the bonus lifesteal is going to be based on only 10% of Gilg's protections instead of 15%. Winds of Shamash also has a 10-second cooldown reduction from 110 to 100. Hades is going to have his healing decreased from 25 to 65 plus 10% of your magical power to 20 plus 80 with no scaling, and Pillar of Agni is now going to be decreasing cooldown from 0.2 every tick to now 0.4% or 0.4 seconds every tick. Hercules, Driving Strike is now going to be 11-second base cooldown instead of 13. Earthbreaker's 11-second cooldown base instead of scaling down. And Mitigate Wounds is now going to be 45 up to 165 healing, and you will only be returning 20, scaling up to 52% of the damage taken. Kali, Marked for Death, the heal is now going to be 40%, and the heal and assist is going to be 15%. Nimble Strike, the damage is now going to be increased by 15 at every level, but it's going to be only 15% of the target's missing health instead of 20%. Lash will be giving Kali 8, scaling up to 20% lifesteal instead of 10, scaling up to 30%. And then Incense is going to be stunning for 1.2 seconds instead of 1, and the cooldown is going to be 15 seconds instead of 18. Lastly, Destruction will be dealing an extra 5 damage at every rank, and it'll also scale by 3% extra of your power. Martichoris, lifesteal is going to be decreased from 1% each on his passive to 0.7% each, and Poison to Barb is only going to be 40% healing reduction instead of 50. Medusa, healing reduction on her 2 is now going to be 40% instead of 50%. Morgan Le Fay gets a buff to literally everything in her kit. Sigil Mastery is down 1 second. Dragonflight is now down 14 seconds at ranked 1, and I'm pretty sure this is the last ability you maxed, so it's just a straight up buff for most of the game. And then Consuming Power is getting a slight decrease to the heal. Mulan, Cross Strike is now going to be 14 scaling down to 12 instead of 16 scaling down to 12, and the slow on Spear Thrust is going to be 25% instead of 20%, but the heal will now be 12 scaling up to 56 instead of 15 scaling up to 75 with 10% of your physical power. Naja, Flaming Spear. Decrease the heal from 2 scaling up to 10 plus 5% of your physical power to 2 up to 12 per stack. The attack speed is now going to be 25% up to 55%, and the critical strike chance is going to be 20%. Neath. Base HP up from 609 to 640. The root duration is going to be up to 1.6 at level 1, scaling up to 2 seconds. Unravel. The healing is going to be dropped down on the weave and on enemy gods and minions. Backflip slow is going to be increased from 25 up to 30%. Nemesis, Slice and Dice is now going to be 50 scaling up to 170 instead of 45 scaling up to 165. Retribution is going to be 70% of the damage taken, and it's going to be on a 14-second cooldown. Nike's Rend, Protection Shred is going to be scaling up from 8 to 24 instead of 4 up to 20. Barrier Formation is going to be on a 13-second flat cooldown, and the base damage from Sentinel of Zeus is going to be up 100 early game and 40 late game. Odin, decrease the cooldown of Raven Shout from 16 to 12 seconds. Now is 14 down to 12 seconds. Even though he's getting this, that shield reduction should just still keep Odin and Nike pretty far down on the tier list. Pele, the power she gets per level is now 10 plus 1.5 instead of 5 plus 1. So she's getting a lot of power on her Everlasting Flame. The lifesteal, though, is down 10%, and the ability lifesteal is down 5%. Persephone, decrease the heal from 22 to 50 plus 10% of your scaling to 18 to 66, but the cooldown is now down to 13 seconds, and Grasp of Death now has 10% extra scaling. Ratatasker is getting nerfed to his healing acorns. He's now going to be getting 15 power instead of 10 and only 2% of his maximum health instead of 3%. Evergreen Acorn, which is the full healing one, is going to be 40 power instead of 35, and you're going to be healing for 5% of your maximum health instead of 7%. Thick Bark Acorn is going to be physical power up to 40 instead of 35, but the healing restore is only 2% instead of 3%. Bristlebush Acorn is getting an extra 5 physical power, but losing 5% lifesteal. Acorn Blast, per acorn, it's going up in base damage and scaling, and increase the damage reduction from multiple acorns from 25 to 40%, and decrease the reduction floor from 25 to 20. The cooldown is also getting down to 12 at all ranks instead of 14, scaling down to 12. Robin Overhead Kick is going to be 16 down to 14 instead of 18 down to 14, and 10 Hand Shadow Fist, 6 to 50, scaling up instead of 10 to 70. Set Sandstorm is going to be 15% damage reduction instead of 10%, and the cooldown is going to be from 15 down to 14. King Slayer is going to be healing him 25, scaling up to 85, and he's going to be having an extra 5% movement speed. Shiva, Samsara is going to be getting a small buff from 4 to 8 on the HP5 and MP5 buff, and the destruction base is going to be 4 debuff HP5, MP5. Damaru's tempo is now going to be down 1 second. Shiva Tandava is going to be mana restoring more. The healing is going to be dropped, but is now going to be amplifying healing and amplify boosted healing, or it affects both of them. Sorry, it's not going to be amplifying it. Sobek, Tail Whip is getting 1 second up or 1 second off in cooldown, and the base damage is going up 10 per rank. The self heal is now going to be 22 up to 50, and the healing reduction is going to be 50 down to 40. Soul is now going to be 18% of her missing health instead of 25%. Sun Wukong is getting 10% extra attack speed debuff on his 2. This is the wrong. Isn't this Erlang's 72 transformations? Either way, Sun Wukong is getting 2 seconds on the top end off of 72 transformations, and Somersault Cloud is going to be healing you for only 3.5% of your healing per second for 5 seconds. Surtur's Obsidian Flesh is getting decreased by about half. Thanatos is getting a pretty decent rework for his cost of his healing. Health cost from ability is now only going to be 4%. Ultimate is only going to be 8%. Harvester of Souls, the HP restore is going to be 15% of the target's max HP, and the minions is only going to be 7%. Death Scythe is going to be on a 12-second cooldown, and the healing will only be 50% of the damage. Soul Reap will be down 1 second. Hovering Death will now do extra base damage, and the stun duration will be 1.5 seconds instead of 1 second. Tiamat will get a decrease in her heal on her passive in stand-up flying form. Tsukuyomi, the swing damage from Kusarigama is now going to be 5 extra base and 5% scaling extra. And then Shingetsu and Mangetsu is going to be decreasing the heal from 4 to 1 plus 1 per level instead of scaling. Tier stance change is now going to be 10 seconds flat instead of 12 scaling down to 10. And Power Cleave will now no longer scale. It will now be 15 to 95 flat. Uller, Exposed Weakness is going to be 16 down to 14. Hail of Arrows is going to be 15 down to 14. And the Wheeled Axe's lifesteal is going to be down from 10 to 30 is not going to be 8 to 20%. Actually, a pretty decent Uller buff. Still pretty bad god. Vamana increased basic attack speed from 0.9 to 1. Sleeping Giant physical protection conversion is going to be 5% extra, and the attack speed conversion is going to be 5% extra also. Colossal Fury protections is going to be 10 at every rank. The power is going to be 20 early game and the same amount late game. And the lifesteal is going to be down 5%. Zhang Kui, he's going to need less of a heal from his exorcism, but Book of Demons is now getting 2 seconds off, and the stun is going to be 1 second flat at all ranks. And it's 2 times as much for extra, or for all the targets. So now that we went through every patch, let's talk about this. Basically, healing and anti-heal was in this really push-pull spot where one of them was always broken, but the other one was always just way better. So it made the other one, even though it was broken, just not good. It started in season, I think it was season 8, where healing was just absolutely busted. Anti-heal was good, but it could not keep up because of just how strong healing was. And you'll have these healing metas kind of weaving in and out. Every few months, you'll have just a time when healers just dominate the meta. You'll see Hells, you'll see Afros, you'll see even Chongas just because people want to play these healers. And then you'll see Emojis, Terrace, and support just because of how strong their healing was. Over the past year, healers were in a pretty bad spot because of just how strong anti-heal was. Tainted, the out of combat effect, onks, brawlers, divines, all this other stuff would just dominate healing, and it was just in this volatile spot in these games where if the healers did not get ahead and snowball the game in 15 minutes, they were losing. Because of this, HiRez had to go kind of to the drawing board and try to figure out a way to make it so healing is less volatile and anti-heal is then less volatile. And I think they found this nice niche where having the abilities not scale and then reducing the anti-heal in the game, like the limit, instead of 80% or instead of 100%, it's now 80%. So if you're healing, at least you're healing something and it doesn't feel like your abilities are doing nothing and you have to just survive the fight to then heal up after. So it makes just fights feel more fluid where you could still fight in those little scuffles because you're still healing something instead of just trying to run away to live the fight to get away. I think this is a good start to give these characters that rely on healing, mostly Afro, mostly Hell, and then like a little bit of Changa, a little bit of Terra, a little bit of Yemoja. I think it gives them a little bit more utility in their kits instead of just making them healers. And this allows them to be something outside of healing. And I think they hit a really nice spot. Straight up, Hell and Afro might be a little strong right now. Straight up. They might be a little strong. But it's not because of healing that makes them strong. It's just because they've kind of given them a few more things to make them stronger, to make up for the fact that the healing isn't there as much. And I think once we get more used to kind of how they're playing in this new way and in this new kind of light, I think it'll open up ways to then deal with that. So at a base level, I think they did really well with the healing, and I think they did a really good job with the anti-heal. I think Onk is probably still a little bit too strong, but I think it's fine. They can nerf it like next patch or something if anti-heal is still affecting healing too much. Now that I touched on healing, I want to talk about one more thing. It probably is one of my least favorite changes that they've been doing, and they did in this patch also, and it's the comeback mechanics. If you're killing somebody who's behind when you're ahead, you'll be getting way less farm. So taking fights when you're ahead now has less value. Taking fights when you're behind now has way more punishment for the enemy, because if you kill the person who's ahead, you're getting a lot more gold, a lot more XP. Shutdowns, enemies that are also ahead and they're getting like a bunch of kills and they're worth gold and XP now. If you kill them now, you're giving an assist to your entire team and you're going to be getting XP and gold for yourself. Lastly, they added the Cyclops Thief Stash, which is another comeback mechanic where if you're behind, your Thief Stash will be worth more gold, and the enemy is either forced into invading it onto your side of the jungle or you're just getting free gold. So I think HiRez is worried about Snowball right now, and I don't think Snowball is a big issue. I think personally the game is in a pretty healthy spot outside of these changes, and now with this healing change where the game feels good. I think there is a lot of ways for teams to come back when there shouldn't be, personally. And I think if you're falling behind, you're either misplaying or you picked a bad comp that can't live the early game, and you should be getting punished for it. I also think the changes to the Harpies is something that should have happened at the beginning of the season, because junglers just can kind of do whatever they want. And I don't think it's completely fixed with this patch, because it's only every 2 minutes. They're worth less farm, so if they're not getting them, it's not like they're getting punished as hard. Wait, there should be one more change. Unless they didn't send it through. I'll just say it. So in the patch that we got, Fire Giant now only lasts 3 minutes instead of 4 minutes, which is another thing where Fire Giant used to last 4 minutes and respawn every 5 minutes. Now it lasts 3 minutes and respawns every 4 minutes. This gives the team that is behind more ways to fight on Fire Giant and more ways to get back into the game, and just all you have to do is waste now 3 minutes of the enemy's time, and now they lose their Fire Giant instead of the 4 minutes. It's just another way for you to just get back into the game. Oh, right here. Okay, so I am just blind. Yeah, Fire Giant only lasts 3 minutes instead of 4 minutes. Crazy. Really, really big change. Patch 10.3 update. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Let me know what you guys think about the patch. Do you guys like the healing changes? Do you guys not like them? And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. See you.